Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Today, we have a legend in the motorsport industry, Judy Stropus. She is probably best known as a professional timer and scorer. She is famous for having the ability to score a 24-hour race without taking a break. That's impressive.
Not anymore.
She's also a driver, includes VSCCA endurance races, vintage races, and my all-time favorite, which I learned this morning as well, is the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash in '72. Otherwise known for the Cannonball Run, most notably inductee into the Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Of America.
Of America. I bring you.
Thank you very much, Allison, and it's lovely to meet Barbara as well. And I know only maybe one or two other of you in the audience, but here I am. So I will probably give you a very, very long and tedious and boring view of my life through some of the slides that I've collected over the years, not in any particular order. But I just want to let you know that I came here to this country in 1949, 5 years old, not speaking the language, and within 15, 20 years I learned the language. I was timing and scoring, I was flying in private jets to races around the world. This was talk about the American dream. It's so complicated to try to go into the technical aspects of it, but you're timing from the bottom up. So you're writing one lap time of the car that comes in front of you, and you put it in his column, you put that time. Then you have the next time of the next car that comes in front of you, and you write it in his column. And then the same thing happens every lap after that, and you subtract the two times, and you get a lap time. And that's your basic. I was the only one in the pits for my teams, and so this is the way I worked it, and I had no backup. I had to be right or I was out. This is 40 laps, but you can see the progress of the cars. The staggered finishes are the different number of laps that they finished in those 40 laps. Working for Carl Ludvigsen at this time as his assistant and handling the Chevrolet PR account. And I'm also writing this book. It took me 4 years to finally get the book done, which took me about 2 days to write. But it took me 4 years to finally sit down and do it. And Carl Ludvigsen came up with a title. I gave him a title of a book that he was writing. And so I said, well, why don't you name my book? So he named it The Stropus Guide to Auto Race Timing and Scoring. So it just reminds me of Carl every single time. And we only printed about 300 of them, but you can find them on the internet now for, I think maybe they've gone up to like $75. I think they were $3.95 back then. So this is how I provided the information to the team, and these are the positions. 18 was John Paul Sr., 6 was Mark Donahue. I forgot who 20 was. And you see the line in between is they're a lap down. So these 4 cars are on the lead lap. These are the lap times and their laps that they're on. So they're not in order because that'd be too complicated. But you can see the highest number, 94, has 86 laps. And then there's their lap times. And the minute is not important. Everybody knew what the minute was. So I would have my assistants to the side. I'd hand them pieces of paper, and then I'd have, this is Leslie Ann Taylor, and she would do the timing. So she would time those cars. She was timing all those cars, and I would do the lap chart, which was important during the race. So when I was racing Volkswagen, I think this is Riverside, and there was also, this was after I'd left the Penske team. The Hacker brothers were racing Volkswagen in the Volkswagen Cup, and so was I. And I was on another team, and the Hacker said, oh, you know, we go flat out on that turn at Riverside. So I said, well, if they can go flat out, I can go flat out. So I decided I'd go flat out, but I couldn't quite make it, so I came off the road, and I was going through the dirt, and I hit a gully, and I went on my side. So the announcers announced, oh, Judy Stropus is on upside down in a Volkswagen. So when I got back to the pits, Roger Penske and Dan Luganbuehl came by to see how I was doing, to see if I was okay in this wrecked Volkswagen, which I thought was pretty special. Nelson Ledges, Don Knowles. I was ahead of Don Knowles, and the night before we all had dinner, and Don says, you know, the way you want to take that turn, so I said exactly how I took the turn, but he hit me instead and caused the wreck. Dunlop, who was my sponsor, decided to use the car in a Amway show, and their label was, even though this car was crashed, the tires survived, which wasn't exactly true, but it was an ad, you know. This is me racing the Oscar Maserati in the 70s. Tony Koshland, who owned 2 of those cars, thought it would be fun if we raced as a team, and we had so much fun that Jim Haynes, who ran Lime Rock at the time, gave us credit for starting the vintage racing craze, because I was the publicist and I had stories about our teams in every magazine, Car and Driver, Road and Track, and it really started the interest in vintage racing. And I never would have thought of that, except Jim Haynes does give us credit for that. We ran a Dunlop flat tire across country from Massachusetts to LA. This is the Grand Canyon. And I'm falling into it, but I caught myself. But we took a Chevette. I think they put a nail or something, they shot something into the tire, maybe only one tire, I can't remember exactly. And we drove it all the way across the country. We had a follow car that had all the executives in. I had to get off at a certain place in order to race in Charlotte, so I got off some city, got on a plane, flew back to Charlotte, raced a race, got back on a plane and met him up in the Grand Canyon. And so we ended up in LA with a run flat tire. This is the Indy 500 with the Penske team, probably the year that Mark won. I don't remember the system I used. It's very hard to time ovals and to score ovals, because they come by so fast and so often. So that was a real challenge. But I set up some sort of system, and I worked it, and I remember we won the race, and I forgot the year. You guys probably know. And I remember Mark, but I had to go back to a race in New Hampshire the next day. So I had to go to the airport, and Mark Donohue wins the race and drives me to the airport. It was pretty cool. So I raced this Honda in a 24-hour race at Watkins Glen with the Crazy Eddie guy. Anybody remember the Crazy Eddie guy? All right. He wasn't Crazy Eddie himself. He was the actor who played in those commercials. So he calls me up. I met him somewhere, and he calls up and says, you want to drive this 24-hour race? I said, sure. And this is where I got a ticket. I'm driving so my stint was over for the moment. I was driving back to my hotel. I'm still in my driver's suit. I probably still have the adrenaline rush, and I'm on the road, and I'm speeding. And I got pulled over by a policeman in my driver's suit on the road. And I said, oh, hi. I don't remember if he gave me a ticket or not, but that's always, I'm sure they had that happen a lot at Watkins Glen or any racetrack where you're driving off the track and going to your hotel. This is the Cannonball Baker team. I'm not a proponent of all women teams. This is in the 70s. I thought it would be a lark if we took Donna Mae Mims' signature image of Think Pink. She always raced Sprites and small cars in VSCCA Nationals, and always wore pink, always had the big blonde hair. Think Pink was her motto. So I said, well, I'm going to put this Cannonball team together. Because everybody's doing this. It just sounds like so much fun. So I said, let's make it an old girl team. So I called Donna Mae. I said, would you like to do this? She goes, absolutely. And at the same time, Brad Nemchek's wife was offered up to us to go with us, and made it a 3-car team. And we wore the pink outfits. And at the last minute, Well, I got the tires from, Mark Donahue helped me get Goodyear tires and a Cadillac limousine. And I had a gentleman who was working for me at the time, and he set the car up, made sure the seat belts worked, made it very safe, and got money from Roy Woods' sponsor, gave us money, and we had his name along on the side of the car. And then at the last minute, this guy walks up and he says, you know, my mother owns this company and we'd like to sponsor you. I said, okay. He said, we're the Right Bra Company. So I said, absolutely, be happy to take your sponsorship. And so I made decals with the right bra over the right breast, of course. And Donna Mae shows up not wearing a bra. Note her perky bosoms. She was almost 50 years old at the time, or 40 something. I mean, when I look back at her age, I said, oh my God. And look at her. And so I said, you know, Donna Mae, we're being sponsored by the Right Bra Company. Do you have a bra? No, I didn't bring any. Well, and she said, well, maybe the PR guy has some product on him, like he has bras in his pocket. And bras that would fit her perky bosom. But, so anyway, but it was hilarious. So we crashed. Peggy Nemchak was so excited. She had never done anything like this. Both Donna and I were race car drivers, and Peggy was not. And so she ended up falling asleep at the wheel, and I tapped her, and she just panicked and slammed on the brakes. And we rolled the Cadillac limousine. If you read Brock Yates' book on the Cannonball, you will, Donna Mae wrote her story, I wrote my story. I didn't mention the crash, but Donna Mae told all about it, because she was in the back with the helmet on, because she didn't trust Peggy's driving.
Justifiably.
And she, I guess a porta potty got upside down all over her, which I don't remember. So, or the chemicals in it. I don't know that we used the porta potty. I don't think we really. We think we stopped with gas when we had to get gas. There's the right bra. I still have that. See, I just pulled that out for the photographs recently. We had that on the car. Now, mind you, we're going cross country, trying to be stealth, and we have all these signs on the car, like the right bra. We got stopped by a policeman. If you, in the movie, the Cannonball movie, the women are, Adrienne Barbeau plays a character loosely based on me. And in the article I wrote for Car and Driver, I said I fell in love with the policeman who pulled us over for speeding because he was just so nice. He's looking, you know, these crazy women with writing all over the car and one with a helmet on in the back seat. And he was so polite, so I said I fell in love with him. So in the movie, they have Adrienne Barbeau being stopped by a policeman, and she pulls down her zipper on the, you know, showing her perky bosoms, I think. So all the stories, the movie, were based on what we had written, but very loosely. It was all editorial. This is an ad from the 70s. I mean, read that. To me, this is still such a fabulous ad. Dunlop makes tires for little ladies who drive on Sunday. Sunday at Watkins Glen. Sunday at Daytona. Sunday at Riverside. Isn't that fabulous? And that was from the 70s. What a great ad. Unfortunately, because Chevrolet, I was representing Chevrolet at that time, Chevrolet said, you know, that Volkswagen is a little too prominent in this ad with your name on it, and since you're the representative media-wise for Chevrolet, maybe you should change something. I said, okay, so that's when I got the Monza, and they helped me with parts. I got parts through the PR department. And that's at the Hall of Fame. With Edsel Ford, one of my, some of the photos, in fact, the one photo at Indy 500 I showed you with my cowboy hat, Edsel Ford took those photos. I have these photos that are stamped on the back, Edsel Ford. And so he's a pal, Kevin Kennedy on the left. When I got when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, Kevin Kennedy is a big-time PR guy from Campbell and Company that has represented Ford and those Ford's companies forever. And he's just bent over laughing, and he's looking at me. I said, what are you laughing? He says, you're just one of us. and you're in the Hall of Fame. I said, yeah, I know, I don't understand either. So when George Levy, the president of the Hall of Fame, calls me on the phone prior to the induction, and before I even knew I was nominated, he says, George Levy, I just want to talk to you. I said, yeah, okay. He says, you know, you've been nominated, and now you're going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. I said, are you sure you have the right number? And he goes, this is Janet Guthrie, isn't it? Janet was also inducted the same year. So this is the first race I was paid for by the Cougar team, paid to time. I had crashed my Alfa Romeo. I took the bus down to Marlboro, Maryland, because I promised my friend I would score his under 2-liter race on Saturday. And that night I meet all the Ford people at a cocktail reception with Duke Manor, who wrote for Auto Week, and his girlfriend invited me there. And they said, we need to, it's 1967. We said, it's a 5-hour race the next day. We need some information. And I'm just drinking. And Duke says, oh, Judy does that. Oh, yeah, I do like chart and stuff like that. Okay, we'll pay you $25. I said, okay. So I did it, and I'm sitting up there. You can see me up here in my trademark scarf, and I'm sitting on a toolbox, and I put the ramps up to prevent, because they thought it would rain. And I timed the score of the 5-hour race. And I went home with Duke and Charlie. They drove me back to New York. And a week later, they all called me. Ford called me. Bud Moore called me. You must come out to the West Coast, because they had a lap chart they knew was perfect. And that's how my career started. And they paid for everything. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.